The midday sun blazed like a forged hammer on Wyatt Harlan's broad back, turning the dry Montana dirt into a shimmering haze. He stood firm in the yard of his sprawling ranch, the Harlan spread, his calloused fingers wrapped tight around the pearl-handled revolver that had once belonged to his pa. 3 masked outlaws had ridden in hard from the eastern ridge, their horses lathered and snorting, guns gleaming in the harsh light. "This land ain't yours no more, Harlan," the leader snarled, his voice muffled behind a filthy bandana. "Silas Granger says sell or die your choice." Wyatt's mind raced, piecing together the ambush. This wasn't some petty rustling. It reeked of Granger, the silver-tongued banker in Willow Creek who'd been hounding him for months to unload his prime. Valley acres for the Northern Pacific Railroad's push westward. The railroad meant progress to some fortunes to men like Granger and his investor cronies. But to Wyatt, it was a serpent slithering through his legacy, devouring hard-won earth. He fired a warning shot into the air, the crack echoing off the distant butts. But the leader spurred his horse forward, pistol barking flame. Wyatt ducked behind a water trough as bullets chewed the ground around him, one grazing his arm in a hot streak of pain. Blood soaked his shirt sleeve, but he rolled, firing back with grim precision, his shot clipping the outlaw's hat and sending him reeling. Chaos erupted, horses rearing, dust choking the air as Wyatt's heart pounded with a mix of fury and fear. 20 years of solitude on this ranch, and now this? He wasn't about to let Granger's hired scum take what his family had bled for. Amid the thunder of gunfire, a lone rider crested the horizon, cutting through the haze like a blade. She sat tall in the saddle, unyielding as the Rockies themselves, her wide-brimmed hat shading a face Wyatt knew too well. Eliza Thornton, once Eliza Hayes, the girl who'd stolen his heart under whispering cottonwoods 2 decades ago. Her emerald eyes locked onto his across the fray, a storm of unspoken history flashing between them. What the hell was she doing here? She dismounted in a fluid motion, her dusty split skirts whirling, and without a word, yanked a concealed derringer from her saddlebag. The pistol cracked sharp, and one outlaw yelped, clutching his shoulder as he toppled from his mount. The tide turned in an instant. The remaining attackers faltered, cursing as they wheeled their horses. But the leader, spiteful to the end, hurled a lit torch toward the barn before fleeing. Flames lit up the dry hay bales, roaring to life and threatening to engulf Wyatt's prize herd of longhorns trapped inside. Wyatt surged forward, ignoring the burn in his arm, grabbing buckets from the well. Eliza was right beside him, her hands steady as she pumped water, their fingers brushing in the frantic heat. Sparks danced around them, smoke stinging their eyes, but together they beat back the blaze, dousing it until only smoldering embers remained. As the last flames died, Wyatt straightened, chest heaving, and faced her. Memories flooded him, stolen kisses by the river, her laughter like wind chimes, until her father, Old Man Hayes, had shattered it all with forged letters claiming she'd run off with a gambler from Denver. Lies, all of it, to keep his daughter from a penniless rancher. "I heard you were hearing," Eliza said squarely, her voice steady as a loaded gun, wiping soot from her cheek. "Cook, housekeeper, whatever keeps this place from falling apart." Wyatt's jaw tightened, pride warring with the ache in his chest. He didn't need pity, not from the woman who'd haunted his every lonely sunset. The town of Willow Creek whispered about his isolation, no wife, number kids to carry on the name, and he knew Granger's web extended there, pushing Eliza his way like a poison gift to drain his resources and spirit. "Granger's pulling the strings," she pressed on, reading his doubt. "He wants your land for that rail line, and he'll use me, with my checkered past, to make you look weak." Reluctantly, Wyatt stepped aside, gesturing her into his sparse cabin. The scent of sage soap wafted from her, a ghost of those moonlit nights, stirring a warmth he thought long buried. Inside, the place was all hard edges, a scarred oak table, a stone hearth, his father's old rocking chair by the window. Eliza's eyes swept the room, noting the unchanged bones from the elder Harlan's days. But she paused at the bookshelf he'd shifted nearer the west window for the fading dusk light. "How'd you know I'd done that?" he demanded, freezing mid-dash stride. She met his gaze without flinching. "I've ridden by every month for the last 10 years, helping out at the Whitaker place up the trail. Glimpses through the windows your whiskey neat after sundown. That new fence you strung alone for winter's back, and no other woman's ever darkened this door." The air grew thick, charged with the weight of years unspoken. Town gossip painted her as the unwanted widow, her brief marriage to a no-good prospector, ending in his death from a cave-in, leaving her tainted in the eyes of Willow Creek's pious folk. Wyatt set his revolver on the mantel, hands restless, fighting the pull of her nearness. She moved to the pantry, eyeing his thin supplies of flour and beans. "I've got savings from selling Pa's old saloon in town," she said firmly. "Ain't here 'cause I'm desperate. I'm choosing to stand with you. If he'd turned her away, she'd have pitched a tent on the ridge, her resolve like iron, igniting a spark in Wyatt's guarded heart. This wasn't the fragile girl he'd lost. This was a woman tempered by fire, stronger for the scars. Shifting gears to safer ground, Wyatt leaned against the doorframe. Granger's after 100 acres through the valley for the northern rail spur. Him and investors like Caleb Whitaker stand to rake in thousands if it goes through. Lose it all if I hold out. Liz's eyes narrowed, sharp as a hawk's. They figure painting me as a costly burden with my reputation will break you financially. Force the sale. Defiant. She reached into her skirt pocket and pressed a leather pouch into his palm. $500 everything I got. Buy me in as partner. Equal stakes, my name on the deed. We'll fight him side by side. The weight hit him like a gut punch. 20 years of regret. Of nights staring at the stars, wondering what if. Her hand lingered on his, warm and steady, promising not just money, but redemption. As dusk painted the cabin in amber hues, their talk softened. Eliza confessed her vigil wasn't obsession, but love her father had poisoned with those damned letters, claiming Wyatt had abandoned her for the open trail. "I knew the truth years ago," she whispered, but waited for the right moment to claim what's mine. Suddenly, a rock shattered the front window, glass spraying like buckshot. Granger's warning escalating the game. Wyatt barricaded the doors as footsteps crunched outside, shadows circling. In the dim lantern light, Eliza's vulnerability cracked through. "I sold it all 'cause Pazliah stole our chance. He said you left me for adventure, but I learned different. This is my fight too." Wyatt pulled her close, their first embrace in decades. Her curves fitting against him like puzzle pieces long scattered. Old flames ignited amid the danger, her heartbeat thundering against his chest. But the threat loomed. Wyatt stepped out alone into the starlit yard, revolver gleaming, facing the hired guns in a classic standoff. "Draw," he growled, the high noon tension thick even under the moon. Bullets whizzed like angry hornets. Wyatt rolled behind the trough, firing back with gritty precision, his shot tearing into one man's leg, dropping him with a howl. The other fled into the night. Wyatt's cowboy resolve a raw, masculine fury unbreakable. Back inside, bruised and bloodied, he found Eliza waiting. Their heated kiss was inevitable, her hands tracing the scars of his rugged life, knife wounds from cattle drives, burns from branding irons, passion built, clothes shedding like old skins. But distant wolf howls interrupted, a reminder of the wild world outside. Dawn brought fresh peril, the well waterfouled with poison. Granger sabotaged to starve the cattle and crush Wyatt's will. Fury boiled. Wyatt saddled up and rode hard into Willow Creek, bursting through the bank's doors. He slammed Granger against the oak desk, demanding answers. The banker, slick as snake oil, sneered. But Wyatt uncovered forged deeds in a hidden drawer proof of a deeper conspiracy. To steal not just his land, but half the valley's single quotes Eliza had followed in secret, slipping into the back alley to overhear Granger plotting to frame Wyatt for rustling, pinning stolen cattle on him to force a sheriff's auction. Heart-pounding, she stole the incriminating ledgers, tucking them under her shawl. But alarms raised. They fled on horseback, pursued by Granger's thugs through twisting canyons. Bullets ricocheted off rocks. Eliza twisted in the saddle, her sharp shooting felling one pursuer as an avalanche of boulders rumbled down, nearly burying them alive. They escaped to a hidden cave, bandaging wounds by flickering firelight. There, Eliza bared her soul, abusive suitors her father had foisted on her after Wyatt, men who saw her as a prize to break. "It made me strong," she said, voice trembling, but lonely as hell. Their bond deepened. Wyatt admitted he'd never loved another, the push-pull of trust and fear twisting like a lasso round his heart. "I built walls," he confessed, "but you're tearing them down." Back at the ranch, a savage storm struck, winds howling like banshees, flooding the fields in a torrent. Eliza braved the deluge to save stranded calves, the current sweeping her under. Wyatt dove in without hesitation, strong arms pulling her to safety, their soaked bodies clinging in the mud, shivering by the fire afterward.